Hey, it's Rod Yates. Welcome to another episode of Humans of Music, a Jaxsta podcast. Each episode I talk to a music creator or industry professional about their life and career, the ups and downs of their journey, and the lessons they've learned. And my special guest today is singer-songwriter Bartees Strange. There aren't many artists touring the world right now who can say they were once part of the Obama administration. Bartees Strange can, thanks to his time as the Deputy Press Secretary for the Federal Communications Commission. He's also worked in the labour and climate movements, but prior to all that, he was an active member of the music scene in and around Oklahoma, where he was raised. He admits he strayed from music for a few years after he moved to DC to pursue politics, but playing and performing kept calling him back, and little by little he started to refocus his energies on his music career. In the years since, he's enjoyed a steady climb up the indie ladder, and he's now 2 albums deep into his career, with his latest, Farm to Table, drawing on influences as diverse as country, pop, hip-hop and hardcore to make a sound that is uniquely his own. When I caught up with Bartees in August, he'd recently finished up his tour in support of one of his favourite bands, The National, which seemed like a good place to start the conversation.
Yes, it's weird being at home, because I'm like, for the last week, I saw Aaron and Bryce Desner and Brian and like all of these people I've looked up to for so long, like right beside me. So I'm just like, oh, now I'm at home. Different. But yeah, man, it was crazy. Like the shows were amazing and they were like so much nicer and chill than you could ever imagine. Like just very good, nice, chill people. Very, very comfortable, fun tour.
I've seen some of that footage of you performing Mistaken for Strangers with the band and getting to guest on stage with them. What is it like? Because as you mentioned earlier, you know, these guys were your heroes. What was it like feeling the National actually behind you and, you know, Brian Devendorf's drums kick in and you're up there singing with them?
Dream come true. I mean, I don't know how else to describe it. I mean, literally it was so surreal. The first night we played in Calgary, I completely forgot all the words. I just stood there. I was just like, I can't do anything right now. I'm sorry, everyone. I was just like, this is too crazy. I don't know what to say. But yeah, it was like overwhelming, but also like I was saying, like they're so generous and like nice and extremely normal, you know?
Yeah.
That it after that, like everything just kind of felt like hanging out with friends, which was also crazy because like they're my heroes. So yeah, very cool.
I guess that's one of the things that you've had to adapt to in the past couple of years. And it ties in with the title of the album, Farm to Table, because, you know, you literally grew up in a rural area in Oklahoma and at one point were painting fences on a farm. And now you're sitting at the table with these people who are not only your heroes, but they're now your peers. Now you've made it to the table. What's the reality compared to what you were expecting it to be?
Well, how's it compared to what I expected? I mean, it's impossible. I had no expectations because I never thought it would ever happen, you know? So to do it, it's just like, wow, what else is going to happen? You know, you just kind of, you start to think a little bigger and it's like, okay, well, this worked out. Like, I guess other things could maybe work out too. What else do I want to try? Or what else do I want to make? What else do I want to make? Who else do I want to meet? Where else do I want to play? You know, those are things that I think about more now that I've kind of met some of these people and realized that they are colleagues. Like the National and I are on the same label.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it's cool.
It's opened up possibilities to you, mentally at least.
Yeah, definitely. Changes what you think is like possible.
Yeah, right. Because I think I'd seen you say that, you know, quite often we prepare for when things don't go right. But when they do go right, we're not actually as prepared for that. Is that how you felt when things started going right with this music?
Yeah, I mean, I literally was like, my friend Chris Connors, who like mixed the album and co-produced it with me, he's always kind of talking about getting out of this like mindset where everything is like life or death, you know, like a scarcity mindset, and kind of thinking more of like a prosperity mindset and just being like, yeah, like things are going to work. Like, and when they work, like, what are we going to do? And that's just like it's nice to think about things that way, you know, and it's definitely something I've been trying to put into practice more, you know, in the year leading up to the record coming out and, you know, as of late. It's easier said than done, but it's helpful if you can get there.
I was going to ask if that came naturally to you.
No, it's like the opposite of how I normally function. I'm very much like, if everything goes wrong, it's going to work because I've planned for every scenario,
Right.
But I don't know if I have to do that anymore. I have a different life and different things going on than I used to.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And you're ready for it?
Yeah, I am.
Nice. So I think I'd read that you started recording Farm to Table either on the day that your debut album Live Forever came out or perhaps even the day before. And that you've said that one of the reasons you did that was because you wanted to do it because you knew your life was about to change. People would either hate Live Forever or they'd love Live Forever. Either way, things were going to be different for you. What was it about your mindset at that point in time that you really wanted to capture on Farm to Table?
Well, when I made Live Forever, I didn't really care what people thought about it because nobody knew who I was at all. And I was starting to realize okay, more people are going to know who I am after this record. And I kind of want to remember what it's like to write a record without anyone knowing,
Yeah.
And just doing it with my friends with the same ethos and the same reasons that I've always made records. And I was like, this time it's never going to feel like this again, ever.
Yeah.
This is the last time. And so I wanted to get another record, at least pre-produced, that was in the same headspace as I was when I was making Live Forever and Say Goodbye to Pretty Boy, records that I care a lot about, but I also very much made just for me, and
right.
So, yeah, I wanted to make sure that this record had that feeling.
Was there a sadness with that realization or an excitement? How would you describe it?
Both. I mean, it's it gets really confusing. When more people start listening to your music, you hear the people that love it, and you hear the people that don't love it that much. It's different than when I was just writing songs in my basement and calling friends and being like, yo, come over, listen to this drum track, or, oh, check out what I did on these guitars. This sounds crazy. You know what I mean? That's kind of the fun part about making things to me.
Uh-huh.
And, realizing that this is going to change and I'm going to change into a different type of person and a full-time musician, which is a good thing. But, there's a give and a take. And I'm not sure if it's all positive or all negative, but it was definitely worth recognizing and something that I wanted to commemorate.
Does it create a problem with your third album? Now that you've not been able to do your third album at the time Live Forever came out, how do you then start looking at that?
Oh, I don't know. I'm always writing.
Right.
So I kind of have an idea of what that album will be.
Okay.
Already. I'm excited about finishing that album.
Nice. I think you've said that one of the songs on Farm to Table, We Were Close for 2 weeks, is maybe a little bit of a sneak preview of the next album. Is that true?
It is true. Mm-hmm.
In what way?
It's a sample from a song from the future.
Okay.
Which I thought was really funny. I was like, people always sample things that are old, but I want to sample something that I know is coming later.
That's great. What about the actual, it's a very diverse album stylistically, and presumably that brought with the particular challenges trying to bring that music to life. Having done that now for a couple of months, has it been as smooth or as difficult as you had hoped? You wouldn't hope that it would be difficult, but do you know what I mean?
I mean, it's challenging. It's a lot of stuff, especially when you look at Live Forever, Farm to Table, the National stuff. There's just a lot of vibes in there. But my band is kind of just great. We just kind of look at the songs and we're like, how do we want to do this? There's probably 3 or 4 ways we could pull it off, And
yeah.
I feel like it's something that it'll change the longer we play the songs. But right now, everything feels really good. It's in a really good, strong place. Europe was our kind of first time drilling the set for over and over and over for, a month.
Yeah.
Every night. And that really made it gel,
Nice.
kind of stick together in a good way. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Is it true that in Rainbows by Radiohead was an album that kind of gave you a bit of an idea that some, like, these things could actually be pulled off live.
Yeah, man. I mean, well, actually, like, seeing Radiohead, honestly, live, I mean, it just shows you, like, it was inspiring to me because I feel like with my music, it's hitting a lot of different points sonically, right? You got pop stuff, rap stuff, rock stuff, indie stuff, whatever. And you might not understand it until you see it live. When you see the band play it, I feel like it adds another element to the record. And I feel the same way about Radiohead and the same way about The National, honestly, and like Big Red Machine and how they choose to perform their records, because they could very easily, for some of the electronic stuff, just use backing tracks, just press play on the drums and then play drums to a click. But the way that Philip Selway, like for Radiohead, does the set is like all those little bip boops and all those little modular drum machine things, he's playing them like note for note. Like every like synth line or modular thing that happens, like Greenwood is like triggering it note for note. And it's like when you see the choreography of it, it shows you the band through an entirely different lens, you know, and that's when things get crazy. And so I wanted to bring that to my set too, where it's like, yeah, Wretched sounds like a pop song, but like when you see us play it, it's more than that. It's like we just played like a country song right before it and Cosigns, and now it's this big pop dance thing. You know, it's cool. It's exciting to do. It's like the best wedding band in the world.
Do you think it's becoming a lost art?
Yeah, I am. Well, I mean, just because other arts are kind of being created. I mean, there's something to be said about like pop acts that perform stuff exactly like the album without a band, like perfectly. I mean, there's a lot of sequencing and like MIDI and click tracks. Like that is like, that's hard. That's really hard to do and to pull off in a convincing, soulful way. I'm just more from like a band background, you know? So it's like, I just want to play it. Like I write stuff I want to like play. Right. You know? Yeah. So that, at least this stage in my life anyways, like that's kind of how I've always wanted to do it. So that's how I am doing it.
One of the themes on the record seems to be becoming your parents, or if not becoming them, at least taking on some of their habits, whether it's subconsciously or perhaps even consciously. And I know that your father was an engineer in the Air Force and he'd be away traveling a lot, which is which is something you address in the song Tours. And you draw a parallel with what your life is like now as well. And there's also in Heavy Heart, there's that line, sometimes I feel just like my dad rushing around. How do you think seeing your dad work so hard impacted the way that you live your life and approach your career? Yeah,
well, in a couple ways. I mean, I feel like my dad definitely showed me like the value of working really hard, but also showed me like the downside of that, where it's like you can work too hard, you know, like and sometimes it's not worth it, you know, and also thinking about like what motivates the work that you're doing. Like, are you doing it to make yourself happy, or are you doing it to make like other people happy, or to buy somebody something, or to get a bigger house or a new car? It's like the motivation behind the work matters too. That's kind of what Heavy Heart's about, where it's like, why do all this just because you feel bad? Like, that's not a healthy way to like live life. You do it because you're happy, you want to do it. Like, that's why I make music, because I love doing it. But, you know, I look at my parents' lives and how hard they worked, and I know they didn't do everything they wanted to do. You know, they were doing it so we could do what we wanted to do, you know? Yeah. So it's like I sometimes see myself in my dad when I'm just kind of just going like full bore, tracking a lot, touring a lot, going a little overboard. And then I have to catch myself and be like, is this good? Like, why am I doing this? Is it to like keep up with the band that I think is doing better than me? Is it because I want to grow faster? Like, is that really worth it? Or is it more worth it to just like focus on the music step by step, one fan at a time? You know, like don't, it's not worth dying over, you know, nothing is.
Is that a conversation that you have regularly with yourself?
Yes, it is. Yes. Especially when you're like promoting an album and there's so many little things to do. And it's kind of hard to know what is like the most valuable or helpful thing. It's just like all these things. And you have to start saying no and kind of thinking like, does it make sense to like give this much time away? Like, this is my time, you know?
Yeah.
It's a thing that you have to really come to grips with. And, and some things are worth it, but not everything is. So you gotta know when to say no.
Which is, I imagine, is hard when you I presume you naturally have an ambition to take your career to the next level. So are you constantly fighting that, or at least questioning it?
Yes. It's always a struggle because there's a part of me that's like, my whole 20s, I feel like it was like, say yes to everything, do everything, no complaints, just do it, be better than everyone. Boom. You know what I mean? Like very aggressive, competitive, ambitious vibe, because it kind of stemmed from this thought that not everyone could win. Only a couple people win. But I'm learning that's not true. There's enough space for everyone to have something. And, that's kind of going back to the scarcity mindset versus more of a like prosperity mindset. Like, it's going to be fine. Like you canceled a show. It's okay. You're going to play 1,000 more shows. It's fine. So it's just recognizing that, life is long. You got time. It's not that big a deal.
That's it. Did you, when you got to the end of your 20s, having lived your 20s like that, was there, did you ever suffer burnout?
Yeah, big time. I definitely burned out in my last world of jobs, but that didn't stop me from working them. I just had a miserable time until music kind of grew to a point where I could do the music stuff full time. And that's also why I'm so conscious of burnout and overwork, because I never want to feel burned out doing this, because I love this, So it's really, how do I protect this? Yes. Because I want to do it for as long as I possibly can. Yeah.
Absolutely. We talked briefly just before about your father traveling a lot, and I know that you had quite an itinerant growing up. I mean, you spent the first 8 years of your life in the UK, but then I think from between 8 and 12, you were traveling a lot around Europe before settling in Mustang in Oklahoma when you were 12. How does that, being a kid, having friends is so very important. How do you think that moving around all the time affected you and your ability to make friends?
I think it taught me how to make friends really fast, because every time I'd move somewhere, I would want to just like, find out what people are listening to so I can listen to it and know what's going on. Yeah. That was kind of my shortcut to making friends. I'd be like, what video games are you playing and who's your favorite rapper or singer or whatever? Sure. That was the thing. But I felt like a life of that really helped me understand like people from just various backgrounds and hear a lot of different types of music and learn how to connect with people in various ways. I think the downside of it, though, was you spend so much time trying to emulate everything that you see that you don't spend a lot of time discovering the things that you enjoy and that you really love.
Yeah.
And so I think I had a lot of acquaintances that I knew a lot better than they knew me, until I kind of got older and moved and started working and started asking myself some real questions about like who I was and what I actually wanted to do with my time.
And is that when music was the answer?
Yeah, it was. When I left college in Oklahoma, I moved to DC for an internship, sold all my music equipment, was kind of dead set on being like a Washington, DC, like lobbyist or PR person and just kind of do that. And I did for like 4 years and was really miserable doing it. And I just remember being like, well, I might as well just like get some of my gear back and just make beats or something, like just to kind of clear my head, just have some music, and every year I wanted a little more. I'd be like, well, I'll move to New York and join a couple bands. And I was like, oh, well, I can tour on my vacation days. And then like, oh, like, I think I need a 4-day work week so I can spend another day interning at this studio in New Jersey.
Yeah.
Then it became a 3-day work week. And then I was taking time off to record records, and I was recording my friends' records, and it just kind of snowballed from there. You know?
Right. Okay. That move to DC from Oklahoma seemed like that's a big move. And it seemed like not an easy move, because am I right in thinking for a while there you actually had to live in your car?
Yeah, it was hard. I mean, it was a hard year. That first year when I lived in DC. I didn't have a place to live when I moved here. I told my parents I did because I wanted to get out of the house. Got to DC, moved in with this family that let me live in their shed in their backyard. It was like a dirt floor shed. And they were like stealing my stuff. And I couldn't afford to live anywhere else. So I would just do my internship, work at this bookstore at night, and then just stay in my car. And then just go to the YMCA, take a shower, go back to work.
Yeah.
And did that for a little while until I got a job.
How strong was the impulse to move back home during that year?
0. I was like, I'm not moving back home.
Okay.
I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make this work. I'm not going to lose. I'm not going home. You know, I just kind of made up my mind. I kind of give myself a little credit because I was like, honestly, it's not that bad. Like, I know I'm going to get a job eventually. I'm like in the pipeline. I'm making enough to eat. It's a bummer I got to sleep in my car, but like, this is going to work. You know, that was kind of how I felt. I was like, this is going to work. And it did.
Nice.
Yeah.
What about in winter though? DC winters are pretty cold, aren't they?
Honestly, no.
Okay.
Pretty mild.
Okay.
And during the winter, I had figured it out.
Are you right?
I figured it out before it got too cold. Mm-hmm.
Okay, gotcha.
I moved to DC in like January, so it was kind of rough from like March to like midsummer.
Okay. And so that move to DC, music was off the cards by that point. As you said, you'd sold your gear. What did that do to your sense of identity?
I was trying to find my sense of identity. I thought I was going to be like Remy from House of Cards,
right?
Like some like fancy lobbyist DC person. I thought that was that was who I was going to be. I really wanted to work for Obama. So, and I wanted a job. I wanted to make money. I felt like I couldn't really figure anything out until I could pay my bills anyways. So I was like, let's just get that far and then figure out what to do next.
Was politics important in your upbringing?
Honestly, no. My mom was a musician. My dad was a military guy, but they're like very normal working class people. The first person I voted for was Obama. I think seeing him win and run for president was really inspiring for me. And I was a really good writer, and I was interested in justice issues, and I didn't want to live in Oklahoma. So it seemed like the best move was, okay, I'll move to DC. I know there's a lot of jobs kind of in my area of study. I'll just figure it out. And that was kind of my goal. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then you do get to work in the Obama administration. What was it, Deputy Press Secretary for the Federal Communications Commission?
Yes, that was a trip. Yes, but and that came true. And I remember being like, dang, this is so crazy. I was like homeless like 2 years ago. You know, when that happened. But that was a really huge moment in my life because I realized I didn't want to be who I thought I was. You know, I didn't want to be that person that worked in DC for 20 years. I didn't want to be Remy from House of Cards. I didn't feel like I was myself, and I felt like I was actually getting further away from who I really was. And that was kind of when I decided, I was like, okay, I think I want to move. And also, I think I want to start playing in a couple bands again because I at least want to feel like I'm creating something. It's really hard not to make things. And so that was kind of the beginning of a journey in a different direction.
Yeah. Last question about that Obama stint. Did you ever have any face-to-face time with him? Did you just see him? Were you associated with him in any way?
Yeah. I've met him in the White House a few times. We had to brief him for things that were specific to our agency every once in a while. So I've met him a handful of times.
And what was that like for you?
Really amazing and inspiring. And also, you kind of got to like keep your cool because everyone like knows him, you know, and you're all working. But I remember being like giddy, like a like a schoolboy. I remember calling my mom and be like, "You're never going to believe how big Barack Obama's hands are."
We'll be back with more from Bartees after this break. Welcome back to Humans of Music and my interview with Bartees Strange. And in terms of your path into music, there seems to be a couple of really key kind of events which shaped you. I think one was seeing TV on the radio on David Letterman in about 2006, and the other was hearing Silent Alarm by Bloc Party. Mm-hmm. How did both of those events or releases, how did that impact you?
Well, I was always in love with music, but I didn't really see a place for myself in it, and I didn't really know what I would ever make. Like, I loved hip hop and I loved R&B and I loved funk, and my dad would play a lot of blues and jazz stuff, and my mom was an opera singer, but none of that really grabbed me, especially my mom's world, because everyone was so highly trained. And I had this misconception that if you were going to be a professional musician, you had to be like my mom, like a Eastman School of Music, Peabody Conservatory, like brilliant artist. And then I saw Helicopter by Bloc Party. Like, I heard that song on FIFA and I was like, whoa, this is amazing. And I remember getting on like the internet to figure out who the band was, and I realized that like the front man was black, and I was like, oh, I didn't even know we could do that. I didn't know that was allowed. Really? And then when I saw, in a way, it just didn't, I was like, I hadn't seen that before. And then when I saw Tunde Adebimpe, that was like, I was literally channel surfing, and I land on the channel right when David Letterman says, "Wolf Like Me," by TV on the radio, and then the first chord. And I was just like, oh my God, what is this? Like, it just like, it was like, oh, you can just do that? Like, you can just be musical in this other way? Like, you know, like these, like, it just like, it seemed like, it felt like something I could do. It immediately hit me as like something I could do. Whereas other music felt very hard to reach. And ever since then, you know, I found a way to get a guitar, and I just started writing and taught myself how to play guitar. And that was it.
But what did guitar mean to you? Because again, you know, you've moved to Oklahoma at 12. You're presumably, again, having to find new friend groups. Was guitar and music something that would be, you could form a community around, or would at least give you some sort of solace while you're trying to find your place there?
It gave me a way to express myself without talking, which was nice. I'm a front man now, but I never wanted to be, and I never was in most things. I was always like the side guy in country guitar, like country bands or like a jazz band. Like, I was just the guitar player, and it was really nice to be able to just express myself on an instrument and just be like, that's the part, you know, like it was a beautiful relationship. I'm looking at my guitars right now as I talk. Yeah. It's just it was the beginning of just like a beautiful relationship that has now lasted for many years. But, you know, it was just like it became like an extension of myself, and it happened so fast. Like, I got really good at guitar, like really fast. It just felt very meant to be.
And did you start writing immediately as well?
Yeah. And I never learned covers. I just like immediately was writing songs. I just was like, I could write it in my head and find it on the strings and just record it on my little cassette recorder.
Right. And how long until you form a band?
My first band, senior year of high school, freshman year of college. That freshman year of college was when we played a little bit, but that senior summer of high school, I first started kind of messing around in bands and just playing with other people. That was new to me. After my first semester of college, I joined a punk band and then a bunch of country bands, moved back to Oklahoma and just like played in bars in country bands and folk bands and hardcore bands and jazz, like anything I could play, I would play.
Yeah. Was that an important learning period for you?
Yeah, it taught me a lot, and I got to watch some people play that were really impressive, and I was able to kind of model a lot of my professional musician behaviors after those experiences. Got to see some really great players play.
Just local people?
Yeah, all local people. Cool thing about playing in Oklahoma is like, I mean, a lot of people would say this is not a cool thing, but I think it's very cool. Most people there aren't trying to be famous. they're just like great musicians, like just killing guitar players, killing drummers, killing vocalists. And like their whole quest is just to be better and better as musicians. When I moved to New York, I encountered an entirely different type of musician that the whole, you know, the whole game was to make it, you know, and it attracted the best talent from everywhere. And we were all there to figure it out. You know what I mean? So I'm really glad I started around a community of people who were like honestly pretty humble and just like wanted to be great guitar players. And they didn't have 30 guitars. They had like a Tele and a Strat, and they're like, I can play it, you know, this is it. Like I play this guitar, you know. I miss those people.
Did that arm you then when you got to New York and you're just surrounded by all these competitive people? Did the things you learned playing in Oklahoma, did it make you feel like, that's all right, I belong here, I can do this?
Yeah. And I had very like low expectations also. I was just like, oh, I just want to play in New York. You know, like I mean, I came in, I remember the first show I played in New York. I was so proud of myself. I was like, I played a show in New York. Like, hey, like not a lot of my friends can say they did that, you know, that I grew up with. I was like, this is great. You know, I'm doing what I wanted to do. I'm playing shows in the city. Like, you know, that's cool. But I learned quickly that there was more to be had. I think like once I started playing in New York, I was like, cool. All right, I want to be the biggest band in Brooklyn. You know, it's like, I want to meet these guys. I want to meet better players. Like, I want to produce these sessions. You know, it's just once I kind of dipped my toe in, I very quickly fell underwater. You know, I was very in love with it because, like I said, like there's not a lot of the competition aspect of Oklahoma is fairly low, which is cool. But playing in New York, it does breed like a different level of like focus and like tenacity and strategery that I think is essential if you're going to actually try and make money off music at any point. And so so I felt like I got both schools of thought at important times.
Nice. Yeah. Were there many bands coming through Oklahoma that you could see when you were growing up?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, like mostly like hardcore bands. So I saw like Norma Jean. Obviously, there's a bunch of, my doggy. Hi. Say hi, Daisy. Hi, this is Daisy. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of like hardcore and punk bands that would come through Oklahoma. But I saw the National in Oklahoma. I saw the Dodos, Tao Win and the Get Down, Stay Down. Yeah. I saw St. Vincent play in Oklahoma. She used to live in Tulsa. She's like a hometown hero. You know, John Moreland, like that guy is from Oklahoma. My best friend is his sideman. Okay. You know, I saw like Chet Atkins. I saw a lot of Kenny Chesney shows, a lot of Toby Keith shows. I grew up on Garth Brooks Boulevard. His family literally grew up on the street I grew up on in Mustang, Oklahoma. Right. So there's a lot of great music around. But the majority of it was from like country artists that were like from Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, you know.
Sure. Yeah. And is it true as well that you saw at the drive-in and it was the first time you'd actually seen a hardcore band where they weren't only white people in there, which must have been huge?
Dude, that was crazy. I will never forget that because they also only spoke Spanish at the show. And I was like, this is rare. Like everyone here is white from the country, and these like 4 brown kids pull up speaking only Spanish and put on the craziest show you've ever seen at this place that doesn't exist anymore called the Green Door in Oklahoma City. Great place. Yeah. Kings of Leon would play there, like early Kings of Leon, like when they were like literally a punk band. Like, you know, I couldn't have been older than like literally 12 when they were doing those shows. Wow. Yeah. I think I saw it at the drive-in when I was 13.
Okay.
You know?
How important though in terms of shaping you? Because again, there's that saying, you can't be what you can't see. So if you're seeing just mainly white artists, but now you see at the drive-in and you see TV on the radio and Block Party, really big events for you to actually see yourself and to see a future for yourself.
Yeah, it was a big deal. And it's a big part of why I wanted to do it myself, because I know how important it is when you feel like you're the only one like you, and then you see something that disproves that, then all of a sudden you feel like you can do more than you thought you could previously. And I want more people to have that experience, whether they're black or white or Asian or gay or whatever. It's like, it's important that everyone feels like there's no ceiling, and that's what those bands did for me.
Absolutely. I think, people often comment on how genreless your music is, but I think when you look at your life, there are also lots of contrasts in there. When you think about at college, I understand that American football was very important to you, and you played that to a high level at the same time as you go to opera camp. You're working later on, you're working in DC with the Obama administration, you're going to hardcore shows as well. So there are these contrasts. Have you always lived your life in different lanes? Has it always been a case of just sort of scooting between the different lanes?
Yeah, but I mean, there are different lanes, but it's all on the same highway. It's just life, It's like I always find it funny because people are like, "Oh, you're doing like all these things at the same time," and I'm like, "Yeah, but like everyone does in a way,
Sure.
It's funny. I feel like I just kind of just did the stuff I thought was cool, and I was kind of raised in a way that my parents were just like, your life's gonna have many chapters, like, yeah, you'll do this for a while, you'll do something else for a while, and if you're lucky, you'll have many, many lives, in your life. And that was kind of what I always wanted. So yeah, like I would go see Braid and Cursive and then go and like do the Obama gig, and like that was like me. It felt good. That was like who I am. So nice. I'm glad that I didn't let that go,
I'm jealous that you got to see Braid. I would love to have seen Braid.
Oh my God. New Nathan Detroit's, baby. A Dozen Roses might be like my favorite song all time. I love that song. Yeah. I love that song. So good.
So how did all the things, as you mentioned, so Obama administration, and then you move into the labor movement, the climate movement. How did that lifestyle prepare you for your life now in terms of having to have conversations with record labels or having to just operate on an intellectual level to get by in those pursuits? Did that arm you in any way for pursuing a career in music?
Yeah, I mean, it's really good to understand like how much $100,000 actually is, like, or like $2 million. It's like, I felt like when I worked in the climate and the labor space, we were always going for grants and building campaigns to get money. And so I kind of knew how far a dollar would go. So when it came time to talk to labels, like a $50,000 deal, like didn't mean anything to me. And I think I had a lot of friends and people I know who would probably have looked at some of the deals I turned down and been like, this is a dream. And I'd be like, no, this won't even cover the next like 8 months. And I know that while I'm building my career, I'm just going to lose money for like the first 2 years.
Yeah.
So I need enough money to pay my band, buy a van, pay for hotels, eat, pay my rent for 2 years, period.
Yeah.
So I can build this thing so that hopefully after 2 years of losing money, I can like make money, It's like, and I feel like I see a lot of people get caught up in that trap of just being like, oh my God, $30,000, this rules. And then after like 6 months, they're like, yeah, the van broke down and I can't afford to fix it. And I haven't paid the band and I'm like behind on this thing. And, it's like, you got to have like a great deal to do anything in this space. And I felt like my previous world of work really showed me the value of like being engaged and understanding contracts and understanding like the motivations of people who are offering you things. Like labels aren't inherently evil, but they can screw you if you're not aware of what's going on, and so you got to like be willing to put the work in to understand what their motivations are, how it can help you, and how you can protect yourself and, get what you want. That stuff is hard, but that's all, I'm 33. If I was like 24 when all this stuff was happening, there's no way I would have been prepared.
So when you decide to pursue music seriously, and so you step out of this more corporate world, even though, you're working in labor movement and climate movement, still very, I guess, straight in inverted commas pursuits.
Yeah.
How much pressure did you put on yourself to focus on music and to actually make it successful, given what you just walked away from?
At first, not much. Like I said, I didn't think this was possible. I just wanted to make stuff. And I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to play in a couple bands. And then that turned into, I'm going to play in a couple records. And then that turned to, I want to learn how to make these records myself. And then, so every year or two, I kind of just would teach myself a few new things and just keep going until I hit a point where I was like, okay, I think I really want to go hard on the music. But I didn't just quit my job then. Right. I just was like, I really want to focus on this. So I'm going to shift to like a 4-day work week and see how it goes. Okay. You know, it's like, I was very like incremental with it because like I had to still pay bills. Also, every artist I knew was working 40 or 50 hours a week. Like I was living in Brooklyn. So even artists who were doing well, like were still baristas, like they still had to work. Yep. So I always was just like, yo, best case scenario, I'll just work 3 days a week and do music the other like 4 days a week. You know, like that was kind of what I was working towards ultimately.
What was that moment like when you got to actually resign and focus on music? Do you remember it?
Yeah, very well. It was surreal because I was like, am I making a huge mistake? But I also was like, I've been doing this work for 10 years now. If I need to find a job, I can probably just find one. So it's not the risk. I had done both for so long that the risk was like relatively low, honestly. And that was kind of cool. Like, I didn't feel like I was like, oh, I got to like do X and X or I'm not gonna be able to pay rent. I was like, okay, I'd save some money. Right. Like, got engaged. I'm very like kind of normal in that sense.
Sure.
I was just doing life stuff,
Yeah. Wait, do you remember the first moment that someone actually told you that you're good at what you do? You're good at this music thing?
Yeah, actually. I have a letter that this guy, Alec Bemis, sent me. He runs the label Brassland. They put out my national record. Yeah. My covers. He sent me this letter that was like, it was very nice, but at the end of it, he goes, you could really do this music thing. Like you have what it takes to have a career in music. And no one had ever said like you could have a career in music to me. And that really like touched me. And I remember reading that like at my desk at work and being like emotional that someone that had a career in music and that had seen great bands and managed great bands, like thought that I could be someone like those people, I always saw a gap between me and like Dave Longstreth or Matt Berninger or like any of these people. And just like, how do you become one of those chosen people? And it felt really like affirming for someone like that to say, like, you're just like them.
Nice. And that EP of national covers, which you mentioned, Say Goodbye to Pretty Boy, that turned out to be really important to you, didn't it, in terms of your career progression? And if I understand, it was almost done on a whim. Is that correct?
Yeah. I had always wanted to do a record of covers, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. But I honestly, I met that guy from Brassland, Alec. I was pitching him Live Forever. No one wanted the record. Like nobody wanted it. And he was too busy. He was like doing the Nationals record at the time, like helping 4AD out. And as I was leaving the meeting, I don't know how I thought of it, but I was like, well, also, I think I'm going to do some covers of the National. And he was like, oh, that sounds interesting. Send it to me. And I took that little door and I called all my friends and I was like, we're going to the studio tonight. And tomorrow I'm sending this guy 5 demos. And I did. And then the next day I sent him 5 more. And he was like, this is great. Let's do this. And then after a week and a half, everything was done. And Alec was like, this is crazy that you did this so fast. And I was just like, yeah. I really want someone to notice me.
Yeah.
I was like, I really want to do this, So he really like, he's an important person in my musical journey for sure.
Yeah. Because presumably that came at a point where you mentioned you'd been shopping Live Forever around and labels had been passing on it.
Yeah.
Which must have made his feedback so important to you to actually get someone say, yeah.
Yeah. It was I mean, I still have that letter. I have it framed, you know, like it made me, it changed how I saw myself. I was like, yeah, like I'm an artist, you know, like I'm going to be an artist. You know, I remember being like, I'm going to be an artist, you know, like that's crazy. Like I'm going to get to do that. So yeah, Alec Bemis.
Nice.
He's great.
Is that a lesson in persistence? The fact that Live Forever was rejected so often, but you just kept at it. Is that one thing you took from that exercise?
Yeah. And also it's like, I tell people this a lot, but I'm like, sometimes you're the only one that knows for a little while, you know, like, yeah. And that's how I felt with Live Forever. I was like, this is great. Like, I know this is great, but no one else believes me, you know. I don't know what to say, you know. And then when it came out, it did like really good. But I can't blame other, you know, whatever. Those labels are all fine. I get it.
Yeah.
But that record was great.
Were there ever any moments of self-doubt though? Even though you knew Live Forever was great, were there any times you thought, God, maybe they're right. Maybe it's not good?
Oh, so many times. And like even now with things. Oh, hang on one second. I'm just going to yell at my dog. Hey, chill out. Yeah. So many times with Live Forever, I kind of thought, wow, like maybe I'm wrong. Like maybe I'm kind of whack, you know? And same with Farm to Table. Like I would oscillate between like, oh, this is the best thing I've ever made to what am I doing? You know, I don't know. I think that's just what happens when you make things, you know, like you get really close to it.
Have you learned mechanisms to deal with that up and down though? To deal with that I'm great, I'm terrible?
I'm learning. I feel like the thing that's helped me out now is I'm just kind of pretty focused on moving forward. I'm just like, cool. Like I made a record. I think it's really good. I want to make more, you know, I want to make another great record and another one and another one and another one. And I'm not going to dwell on like previous records, you know, like I want to just keep making things. And that's been helpful so far.
Yeah, nice. Very last question, Bartees. Jaxsta is all about giving credit where credit is due. Are there people you give credit to for helping you get where you are today?
I mean, we already talked about one, Alec Bemis, but, you know, my parents, I mean, my mom and dad like believed in me so much. Like anytime I wanted to do anything, like they were like, yeah, you can do it, you know? And I remember working in Obama administration and all that stuff and being really depressed and my mom just being like, hey, like, don't give up on your music. Like, why aren't you doing that? You know, like you love that. And I was like, you're right. Yeah. So it's like a big credit to my mom for reminding me that my life felt like something was missing because there was, you know? And so that was huge. Other people I would say are really important are like a lot of the people that were on Farm to Table have been in my circle and in my community of friends and players for the last 7 to 10 years. Like Chris Connors, the person who co-produced the record with me. I mean, he like turned down working with Kanye West to work on my record. You know, like he's like, he worked on the Kanye record and like left and was like, yeah, I'm going to go do the Bartees record now. Like, this was cool. Thank you. And left, you know, and like, we're that close, you know, or like Dan Cleaterman, the guitar player on my records, he played the guitar solo for Hold the Line. Like, I've known that guy for like 7 years. Like, he's like the best guitar player I've ever met and one of the best people I've ever met. And just like, an amazing person. I'm so grateful for him and like Graham and TK and Jordan Blakely and all these people who have kind of sprouted up around my music and who have been so supportive. It's like incredible. Like I feel like over this conversation, we've talked a lot about myself and all the things I did, but none of it would be possible if it wasn't for like these very special people who take times out of their life to contribute to my journey. You know, so grateful for my band and my community of players and the people who are on the team. You know, it takes all of them. So it's cool.
Nice one. Bartees, thank you so much for your time. It's been really great chatting with you.
Yeah, good talking to you too. Thanks.
And that's it for another episode of Humans of Music. A big thanks to Bartees for his time and thank you for listening. Just a reminder, the Bartees' latest album, Farm to Table, is out now. This episode was mixed by Lachlan Mitchell from Parliament Studios in Annandale, and the incidental music and theme song were written and performed by Sam Lockwood. Please remember to subscribe to the Humans of Music podcast so you never miss an episode, or even better, share it amongst your friends and rate and review it. And remember, next time you need to know who wrote a song, who produced a song, who engineered it, who played on it, who sang on it, who did anything on it, head to jaxsta.com for all your official music credit information. Until the next episode of Humans of Music, I'm Rod Yates. Thanks for listening.